Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Grow My Business webinar. My name is Sheon Oguntonode, and I am a content creator at Flutterwave. My colleague Adewale would be taking everyone on understanding fraud in the payment space. But before we go into that session, I would like to set a few house rules. So this webinar is being recorded. So if you're not able to stay till the end, or you need to just catch up, or you want to send it to somebody, it'll be sent to your email, and you can also find that on our YouTube channel. And if you like to ask questions in between each session, you can put that in the Q&A section and not the chat box, so it doesn't get lost there. And if you like to talk to other participants, you can always talk to them using the chat box. So we'll be starting now. So today we're going to be having Adewale Ayantoye, Global Head of Product Compliance and Risk Management at Flutterwave. So he's going to be taking us through understanding fraud in the payment session. So after that, we'll be having Jolade. So she'll be taking us what Flutterwave has currently for business owners and how you can grow your business. So after that, after her session, we'll be having the Q&A section. So if you can just put your questions during each section in the Q&A. Hi, Adewale, are you there?
OG, yes, I'm here. Hey, everybody. My name is Wale Ayantoye. I'm the Global Head of Product Compliance and Risk Management here at Flutterwave, just as OG has rightly mentioned. It's nice to have each one and every one of you guys on the call. I know you have 1,001 things you're supposed to be doing right now, but here we are discussing about fraud. I want to say thanks to my fraud team who were able to put this together. So they were able to help me out. And also thanks to Baye, who manages our program in Nigeria and West Africa as well. Now, as business owners, I believe one of the main reasons why you're here today is to discuss about fraud. How does fraud influences affect your business? Most importantly, one of the things is as business owners, you have 1,001 things you're worried about. Are you thinking about? From your profit generations to your revenue expansions, you're thinking about all of these 1,001 things, and then you realize that some of your profit or some of your business growth is being stunted just because fraud is the main issue in the ecosystem as of today, which is unfortunate. The truth is that as much as we're in a space right now where fast money, fast car, technology, everything is on the fast pace, fast food. So also the same thing with fraud as well. For every technology, for every advancement, there's always a loophole. And that is where myself and the rest of the global product compliance team and all of us come into play to see how we can help you mitigate some of this fraud within this space. Now, over the years, one of the things we have to acknowledge is that human evolution is constantly on the rise. The way we do business is no longer the same. The way we used to live our life 10, 15, 20 years ago is no longer the same as well. Technology is improved. So also is our ecosystem every day. So as of today, payment is no longer the way it used to be. Things are changing, things is involved. Years ago, I remember growing up, if you want to reach out to somebody, you have to do that by sending a letter. You go to the post office, you buy a stamp, you buy an envelope, and then you do that. As of today, how many of us can even say we go through that route anymore, except if you're corporations and you have to reach out to thousands of customers. And even as at that, people still always end up using the email. Well, maybe except when the IRS want to collect their money from you. Then that's when you're gonna receive a lot of paper in your mailbox. But with that being said, that's just the testament to the fact that as human, our life is constantly evolving. Years back, if you want to conduct a transactions, you have to go to the physical location in order to conduct some of these transactions. But as of today, that has changed. We company like Flutterwave and with our product like Batter and our Flutterwave store and a host of other infrastructures that we have put in place. This is the reflections that we're thinking as where we are today as human, and also we're predicting the future. Now, enough of all these background talk about human evolutions in the future. What does fraud really mean, and how does that play a role in what we do as of today? All right, so this is going to be the agenda. Because for me, it's all about setting the right expectation as to what are we here to diving in. So if you look at the agenda on your screen and you feel like, oh, I think I'm in the wrong webinar, then it's nice to have that expectation ahead of time. So what are the things that we're going to be talking about? A quick introduction about what fraud is all about. Just a quick reminder. It's not as if we've forgotten what fraud is all about, but it is very important for each one and every one of us to always remind ourselves, what is fraud really? And then what is payment fraud? Type of fraud. How does fraud happen? How payment fraud affect businesses? Ways to protect your business. And then we can always come into a conclusion as to my summary giveaway and how Flutterwave is helping you protect fraud on your platform and how you can help us help you as well. Because I always say that fraud prevention is a two-way lane. It is not just enough that on our side we have fraud officers, compliance officers who are staying sleepless nights in order to prevent fraud on the platform and ensuring that your profit is your profit and you don't have to worry about reputational damages. However, if we're doing everything on our side, then whatever it takes, we need your help because we can't do it alone. So with that being said, with the entire timeline and presentation outline, I think it is time for us to take this long drive together. All right. So introduction. Fraud breaches has become a widespread issue as number of organizations incurring financial losses from fraud continue to rise. Business owners can take proactive and preventive measures to help protect their businesses from payment fraud. Now, in the real essence of things, there are a lot of things that we can actually, a lot of cues that we can take away from the introduction itself. Like I rightly mentioned, that human evolution is constantly on the rise. So as of years ago, that was nothing like a telephone. As of years ago, I can sit in the comfort of my home and in front of my comfort of my home here, United States, and present to God knows how many people on this call globally. That is never going to happen. Even if not all, a couple of us right now be scrambling through the airports trying to get our way to the venue so that we can present and speak to each other in person. But the world has changed. So also is the payment system. Now, with that being said, and the whole of this change is coming to play every day, organizations are losing money. They're bleeding money every day just because some people have made it their own life mission to sit somewhere else and think like, okay, how can we take advantage of the advancement in technology, especially around the payment system? Now, if you're thinking that fraud is not an issue, fraud is a myth. My only hope is that you don't find yourself on the other side of the spectrum, because life has been ruined, businesses has been destroyed, just because some people have decided to make an entire life out of being fraudsters. I've been in the payments industry for a minute now, and I can tell you I've seen so many things. Just when I think nothing is going to shock me again as a compliance and risk officer, then another thing is going to happen. And then that leaves you in a position where you're constantly thinking, are we actually doing enough? But like I rightly mentioned in my pre-introduction, that our job as financial crime officers is to prevent crimes on the platform as much as we can within the best of our knowledge and the resources that is available to us. But we cannot do it alone without your support. So, all right. Now, what is payment fraud itself? Okay, Wale, you've spoken about introduction. You've spoken about how fraudsters have decided to make a life out of something such as this. But in the real sense of it, what is payment fraud? Payment fraud is the act of completing a transaction with a stolen credit card or unauthorized payment information that deprive a victim of payable funds and property. Payment fraud can also occur when a user knowingly charge back a legitimate purchase known as friendly fraud. Now I'm going to speak about this real quick. The first thing that we have to consider is this. When we said, what is payment fraud? Payment fraud is the act of completing a transaction with a stolen credit card or an unauthorized payment information. I used to live in Europe before I moved over to the United States. I've had instances where A couple of my friends who were living in Estonia received a payment completion alert in Ukraine. This is somebody who has never been to Ukraine. He was panicking because that is the same card where his salary is. And I could understand, even though some other people found it funny. And I'm like, what's funny about this? This is someone's means of livelihood. This is someone's 30 days. For those of us in the United States, we get paid twice. We get paid twice a month. But in other countries, it is once a month. So this is somebody hard earned money that is about to be taken by someone else. Now, if you look at it in the grand scheme of things, it looks to see, oh, this is really nothing. It's just a couple of euros. But by the time you add those euros together with thousands of other victims, the number add up eventually. And it's the same thing as business owners. Over the weekend, a friend of mine who's based out of Lagos, Nigeria, reached out to me, and she was explaining to me how she received a fake alert in completing a transaction. So it was a POS transaction, and she received an alert that the transaction has been completed. Goods was exchanged, service was provided, only to realize that when it was time for settlement, that it was a fake transaction. The money never moved into a bank account. She was devastated. This is a small business owner. Owes every dollar, every cent really matter. And the next question on her mind is, how is she going to be able to fill in the gap for the money that she just lost? Obviously, some of us has to come up in order to help her and fill in the gap. But that should give you a clearer picture that fraud is a global pandemic, regardless of how we want to paint it. For one of the main questions, one of the things that I've received over the years has been, as a Nigerian who his life mission has been to build a career within the payment space, preventing fraud on different platforms and different products. How do you do it? Especially when you think about fraud, you think Nigerians. No disrespect to any country, to any nationality. But for me, living in America, that has always been, anytime I walk into a room to speak at global fraud conferences, at webinars, the next question is like, you're a Nigerian. Isn't that ironic? That as a Nigerian, you're trying to prevent fraud, but whenever you think of payment fraud, whenever you think of romance fraud, Nigerians are always there. And unfortunately, even when I was living in Estonia as well, there is a Cameroonian guy who was arrested for payment fraud. But instead for the media to mention as a Cameroonian, they mentioned Nigeria. So unfortunately for Nigeria, we've become a brand for the negative reasons that when names are being mentioned, it's going to be, oh, is a Nigerian? Like, no, I'm not a Nigerian. I'm a Ghanaian or I'm an Ivorian. But the conversation today is not about pointing fingers to which nationality hold the highest ranking when it comes to fraud. The conversation is around how this impact people's life, impact people's businesses. Another instance, which is the second definition of fraud, can also occur when a user not only charge back illegitimate transactions. I've had the privilege of working in various organizations, and one of the organizations I worked for at some point in my career was where some people will have their friend complete the transaction on Amazon, and then after completing the transaction, they're going to reach out to the friend that works for the organization that I work for, and they're going to help them charge back the transaction legitimately. They were raking in thousands of dollars every month from something like that. Now, as insane as it might sound, that is just the reality. The human mind has a way of working. Just when you are thinking North Pole, someone else is thinking down south. That is to let you know that you cannot just say, oh, because Flutterwave has built this infrastructure, Flutterwave has made payments seamlessly and effortlessly. That doesn't really mean that we're not going to have some of the bad actors to come on our platform to defraud business owners all in one. But it is our job. That is why I always make a joke with my team that before I joined Flutterwave, even though I've been losing my hair, but when I joined Flutterwave, I realized that the rate at which I was going bald was beyond me. And then I started growing gray hair faster than I could imagine. And at the end of the day, I told her, I said, man, This is a lot of work, but that's why we're here, to make sure that all of these organizational reputational damages is preventable as much as we could. Now, let's talk about type of fraud. With the high rate of internet adoptions of various tactics and technology used has evolved, as long as there are loopholes in any system, which definitely there's always going to be, there will always be criminals here are waiting to exploit them. It is safe to say there is no way out. Is it safe to say there's no way out? Well, I tend to disagree. I'm not going to say we are all doomed, because if you're all doomed, then there's no reason to be on this webinar and there's no reason for me to have a job. So, with that being said, below are some of the most common instances of payment fraud: online phishing, spoofing, identity theft, merchant or identity fraud, data theft, chargeback and friendly fraud, fraudulent chargebacks, payments, page jacking, advance fees, and wire scan. Now, for business owners, because I could see like on the call we have professionals who understand the payment systems and financial crime in a deeper sense of things. But at the same time, we have business owners who are like, okay, well, like, we just listed various type of payment fraud. What does this really mean? Because I am thinking about my balance sheets, I'm thinking about my profit, I'm thinking about my expansion. So you're the expert here, talk to me. All right, so that's why I'm here. Now, when we think about payment itself, I always make a joke that you don't actually see the money. What you see is the number. We all get paid in numbers. So with that being said, one of the first things is online phishing, spoofing. Now, what does this really mean? It's, has anybody on this call at any stage in their life received an email, a text message that my name is King Abdulaziz Abdurrashid. I just lost my brother who is a prince and the rightful owner to $10 billion that belongs to the empire in Cairo. And as a result, I need your help to help me claim this money. I'll give you 10% of the entire transactions. Some of us have received that. Or have you received an email where they're like, oh, congratulations, you just won $5 million from the ongoing national lottery XYZ. Please click this link to complete your form and claim your prize. Or have you opened an internet page? And then when you open the page, it's like, wow, welcome to this page. You're the 10,000th person to visit this page. You just won $5,000. So many messages like that. It is all around us. Like I always tell people, the detail is in the pattern. It is all around us. It's all just about if you can see it or if you cannot. Now, what I just mentioned to you right now, the instances I just gave to you, that is online phishing or spoofing, where someone is going to reach out to you and say, hey, provide us which I'm going to speak about later on, provide us your OTP. When you provide us your OTP, which is usually your unique number, whenever you sign into an online payment platform or you sign into any secure site, they send you these text messages that has a set of numbers or that they're going to tell you to punch in. So there are instances where someone is going to tell you like, send me your OTP and I'm going to give you $20. I've seen it. And you'll be thinking like, right now in this call, you're thinking like, there's no way on earth I'm going to give out my OTP. Yes, that's how you're going to think. There are people who actually give it out because they never understand the implication and the importance of that OTP. And then what happened? That leads me to the next one. Identity theft or merchant identity fraud. Now, in situations like this, identity theft or merchant identity theft, we have another language that we'll give to, which is called ATO, account takeover. Now, instances like this, what happened is there's another experience of mine that I had where a merchant who has an online business, not with Flutterwave, that's some stages in my career, who has an online platform, created an account. And while the person was processing transactions, one of the employee decided to go and create a mirror image of that particular account. So if, for example, my business name is Wale Ayantoye Incorporation or Wale Ayantoye Inc., the employee decided to go and create Wale Ayantoye, but instead of one E at the end, decided to put two E's, Incorporation. So if you're not really looking deeply, you're not gonna say. So you're gonna be thinking you're paying into the same account, into the same business owners. But in the actual sense of things, you're paying into two different owners. So they take over your account, and every transaction that's supposed to go to the original business owners is being diverted. And then at some point, the business owner had to reach out. And I was like, wait, listen, I've been providing these goods and services, but transactions are not forthcoming. What's really going on? These are the invoices, these are the receipts that people have paid into the account. And then when we looked there, it's like, no, this is not the same company. They're two different companies. And as a matter of fact, the person who registered this company is actually, do you know XYZ? I was like, yeah, that's my employee. Well, that is who has been defrauding you, who has taken over your account. So things like this make you understand that this is no child's play. And every day, thousands of issues like that happen globally. And it's a pandemic. Now, account takeover is a major issue. Recently, I think it was Minneapolis or one of the government parastatals in the United States, where an hacker decided to take over their account and they were making demand for them to pay. So that's to let you know that as business owners, the same way you pay attention to your profit and your growth, you need to pay attention to how you can help make your platform bulletproof when it comes to fraud. Are people going to try and take over your account? I promise you the answer is yes. If only you know how many times people have tried to take over your account, that we're here, myself and my team, we're constantly trying to prevent that. We're not saying that our system is not safe. No, our system is. And that is the main reason why you've not been defrauded. Because we're constantly fighting this battle and ensuring that as you go to bed every night, you can wake up knowing fully well that you're protected. Now, data theft. Data theft is another main issue. As much as a lot of people might want to overlook it, I promise you there are a lot of social security numbers, a lot of BVN that is available on the darknet today. Just by going to the darknet, you can decide to buy a whole new identity and become a brand new person. Data is another main issue. And even before we go into data, online spoofing, identity theft, with the ongoing pandemic that we are all currently living through history. One of the main ones that happened that went on is the PPP loan, which is the United States government providing loan assistance to business owners in order for them to be able to scale their business in the middle of a pandemic. For crying out loud, you would think that as we're going through a pandemic and thousands of people are dying every day, and we're constantly thinking, how are we going to survive COVID? Some people actually is like, oh, in the middle of chaos, there's an opportunity. How can we take advantage of this situation? Now you see people start lying about their businesses that doesn't exist, trying to defraud the US government of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I am more than happy to share the statistics with you at some point. And it was actually something I spoke about at the last concluded Global Fraud Conference about how these impacted the global economy. For every dollar that has been stolen from a legitimate transaction and moved into a illegitimate fund, that is a distortion to the global economy. Now it's like, well, you just been dramatic. How can moving $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 affect global economy? Now, let's look at it from a bigger picture. For every dollar that is being moved illicitly and unapproved, unsanctioned, what happens is that some of these transactions go into the hand of drug lords, child trafficking, and also financial crime financing. That is the big picture out there. Now, when we think about it, how does this affect your business? How does it prevent you from scaling? So while you're thinking, while are you stating that back then, let's take a step backward. Back then, when you have physical locations before the emergence of online stores like Flutterwave stores and all of that. If you've ever been to Africa or you live in any of the African countries, you will have witnessed the fact that unlike some other developed nations, when you go to their city centers and their whole towns, where you see expensive bags, high-end fashion stores displaying their goods in a show glass, and you're walking around the town at 1 a.m. and you're looking out, oh my God, somebody just placed a $5,000 bag in a show glass and you can see right through it. Many African countries doesn't have that privilege. When business owners are leaving their stores at night, they're going to put on a padlock. They're going to apply a chain, like whatever it takes to make sure that when they come back the next day, their goods still remains in the store. As of today, people are transitioning from a physical store to an online store now. So just the fact that it is an online store doesn't mean that some of us are not on the back end trying to protect people coming on your platform and defrauding you. Now, chargeback and friendly fund, I think I mentioned this earlier real quick. We also have romance scams, a lot of other things, but due to the nature of Flutterwave business, we're going to restrict the conversations to payment fraud itself, and do not let us dive into romance scam. That's an entire conversation for another webinar. Now, fraudulent chargebacks and payments. I used to live in St. Louis, Missouri, and I received an alert of a transaction process that happened in Dallas. I almost lost my mind because firstly, it happened on my credit card. And secondly, because I was not in Dallas around the time the transaction happened. It was about $800. And I had to call my credit card company and ask me a bunch of questions. They canceled the card, shipped me a new card, and they incurred the debt. Now, this is to let you understand. Now, think about it. $800 from me. Imagine $800 from 100 people. You understand the number? The number doesn't really look significant if you look at it in an isolation incident. But when you look at it from the grand scheme of things, it begins to make sense. So what is fraud really all about? Now, page jacking, advance fee, and wire scam. Advance fee is another way where a transaction is supposed to be $10 and somebody is going to find a way to add on to it and make sure that you're being charged extra without you understanding what you're being charged for. Instances where, how many of us today, when we go out, when we're traveling at the airport, we decide to buy coffee and they ask you, do you want a receipt? Well, it's like, no, we don't want a receipt. Maybe because we're trying to act too cool and too fancy that we don't want a receipt. After all, it's just $5 coffee. But by the time you look at that receipt, you realize that they've added a couple of extra ons to it, and then $5 coffee becomes $9. But when we start questioning, you're like, oh, this doesn't even make sense. This doesn't add up. That is fraud in a real sense of things. All right. The next one that I'm going to be speaking real quick is, how does fraud actually happen? I think I covered some of these like with my last slide. So, but I'm going to try and deep dive a little bit into some of these conversations. Fraudsters often processes as legitimate representatives and contact credit card owners asking for sensitive information they use below means of interactions to steal personal data. Emails, texting malware to smartphone, instant messages, rerouting traffic to fraudulent websites, phone calls, online auctions. Now, before I go into the last paragraph, I would love to speak quickly about these 6 things that have been highlighted here. Now, when you say fraudsters often possesses legitimate representative, there was a time in my career where I was looking for a job. And just like nearly every person looking for a job, you go online and you start searching. And I believe some of you guys on this call might actually be able to testify to that. And on the call, like I started applying for jobs, and all of a sudden I started receiving some funny emails. One thing a lot of us on this call have to understand is this: when you are in a depressing situation or you are in an urgent situation, you don't really pay attention to all of the facts and all of the details presented in front of you. No, you don't. So I've received some of these emails, but I haven't been a financial crime officer for over a decade. It's really helpful. I received an email and someone was like, "Oh, my name is Ramesh something, and we have a job opening for you. The job is going to pay $127 an hour. If you can send me your social security number and provide me a couple of your other details, we would love to run a quick background check on you and give you more details regarding the job. As unfortunate as it sounds, because I was in a situation where I was looking for a job, I busted out laughing. Like, first, $127 an hour. What is the job? What is the position? You couldn't state it. So if you cannot state that, I don't really think that's the job for me. And then another one is that you receive certain calls and they're going to tell you like, I've received some of these calls as well, where it's going to be, my name is something from the internal revenue. You have to provide a social security number. You have a due balance of $5,000 that has been presented by the IRS. If you don't provide me your social security, we're gonna block it. We're gonna repossess your car, your house, like literally threatening you. And you know, as human, our first instinct is always to react. Like, oh my God, IRS is gonna take my car, take my house, take everything that I have. I didn't even know I was doing the IRS $5,000. Okay, what do you need to provide? My social security is 32 something. I start providing all the numbers. Now, when things like that happen, I usually just hang up because I really don't have the energy. I have a couple of friends that just like they'll stay on the calls and just mess with them, only for the scammers to realize that they're wasting their time. And a lot of that as well. Text messages to texting malwares to smartphones. Please, for everyone on the call, as business owners, as individuals who are trying to scale their career, if you receive a text messages from an unknown number, don't open the link, don't click it. If you receive an email from an unknown number, don't click it. It doesn't make sense. You know you didn't apply to Flutterwave for a job. Then you receive an email stating Flutterwave for a job. Why do you want to open it? It just, like they always say, the curiosity of a cat. You know the end story. You receive an email from Ministry of Defense talking about a certain contract. You know deep whether you're not a contractor. You know deep whether you've never spoken to anybody at the Ministry of Defense. Why are you clicking the link? When you do, what you're instantly doing is that you're giving access to fraudsters to be able to direct traffic from your system into their home platform. And whatever happens after that is never good, I promise you. From blackmailing to life being ruined and all of that. Instant messaging is another one. You go on social media, you go on Facebook, you go on LinkedIn, you go on Instagram, you go on Twitter, and then you receive a message from somebody who is telling you, like, click this link. And then another one is where they're going to say, like, share this link with 10 people, you die. And then you're going to start sharing the link with everybody because they don't want to die. But all of these things that I just stated is leading us to number 4, which is routing traffic to fraudulent websites. Instances where I think it actually happened to me recently. I was trying to visit the AT&T website, and then for some God known reason, the AT&T website is redirecting me to another site for me to make a payment. And I'm like, no, this is not AT&T website. If I didn't pay attention, I would have ended up paying through that platform. And God knows what will have happened. For me, my search web, I've always used Google. I don't think most people still use Yahoo search engine anymore anyway. And there was an application I installed on my personal computer a while back, but I never, like at some point, that application became compromised. So whenever I try to type something in Google, it redirect my traffic to Yahoo. And I'm like, no, I don't use Yahoo, I use Google. So I have to start going back through the application that I understand, like, oh, this is one that's been compromised. So it's the same thing where you're trying to make a payment. One of the biggest story of the last 1 year right now about fraud. For those of you that are non-Nigerian, you can go to YouTube and type in Hush Puppy, which was the center of my conversation at the last Global Fraud Conference. And what it did was the fund that was meant for COVID victim in the United States, it redirected the fund from the US government, not from anybody, not from Flutterwave, not from Wale, not from anybody out there, from the US government itself, redirect the fund into his own personal account. And it was a whole big issue. It's actually a whole big issue. It's still ongoing. His case is on, his trial is ongoing in the United States. So redirecting transactions from one platform to another is the main issue. It's the same way I mentioned to you guys at the beginning of the conversation, how an employee created a mirror account of the master account and redirect the fund to that platform. So these are things that you might want to pay attention to. I'm not saying you should panic, because that is the reason why my team and I were here. Now, another one is the phone calls, which I mentioned about somebody calling you and telling you like, hey, the IRS is about to repossess your house, repossess all of this. And like, no. So recently, I bought a house. And one of the things you have to do in the new house is you have to install a water softener in the house. And while we were thinking, okay, let's install this water softener, we went online to look for this company, and we reached out to them, we booked an appointment. The same time we booked that appointment, the day the real company was supposed to come, another company actually came, and they were like, hey, you called us to book an appointment, so we're here. And the guy was about to step into the house before I looked at his badge, and I'm like, no, this is not the same company that I called. And it was like, oh, you don't have to worry. We letter Q and Q is the same thing. It doesn't really matter. We perform the same service. Like, no, yes, you might perform the same service, but you're two different companies. And I had to call the original company to let them know that their online website, their booking page has been compromised. So if I didn't pay attention to that little detail, if it were to be somebody who was trying to defraud me, the person would have easily done that claim. Then online auctions. Online auctions. And honestly speaking, I can't overemphasize this enough. You know quite well that an iPhone 12 costs $900 something dollars. Then you go to this online auction and say, oh, iPhone 12 we can give you for $50. And you instantly jumped on it, drop your $50, and then you realize that goods has not been provided to you. That is another one. I'm not saying that the fact it is cheap doesn't mean that it is real. It could be real, but that's not my position to give you an advice on this call. My position is just to analyze fraud. But you might want to pay attention because the devil is always in the detail. Also, cyber thieves work in teams to penetrate network security by looking for patches that haven't been updated. Now, that very particular last paragraph, as simple as it sounds, let me ask you a simple question on this call today. Why do you think it is always called organized crime? Just think about that. Why is it always called organized crime? Because it's an entire network. They rely on each other's expertise. They rely on each other's availability. They rely on each other's geography, technology, in order to be able to complete these illegal acts. That's why it's called organized crime. That is why you can have somebody who is based out in Colombia. He's going to be in conversation with somebody who's based out in New Mexico, United States, and they can move an entire phone without anybody even thinking about how it happens. It's the same way you will have. There's this popular song that has been making wave in Nigeria for God knows reason. It's glorifying scam. That's what the song did. And I was in a setting where they were playing the song, and even the part of the song was sung in local Nigerian language called Yoruba. And I I listened to it, and a couple of my other professionals in the industry were asking me like, "What does this mean?" I was like, "No, I'm not going to be the one that's going to interpret this to you. Go online and go search the meaning before you start dancing to it." But it's the same way how you're going to see somebody who is based out in Nigeria they're trying to commit crimes, financial crime in the United States, and they have a whole network of people that they reach out to. If you see the way these people live, the lavish lifestyles, and how they spend money on exotic cars, exotic animals, exotic islands that they visit, all based on other people's sweat, by taking every coins, every dollars, every cent off them. so that they can live the kind of lifestyle they live. If it's just about their lifestyle, you might say, okay, they want to live like but they're lazy. However, some of these funds is always used to support illegal acts, financial crimes, child trafficking. Child pornography is another main industry that we don't even want to go into today. So that is how does fraud happen. That is how it happens, ladies and gentlemen. Now, let's go to the fraud triangle. Thanks to my fraud team. So I'm going to give you a shout out for this one and the entire fraud team that put this together, by the way. Now, when you look at the fraud triangle, I've painted the picture even in a different way. So I just think my team were able to put color to it by putting out an image for people to have a better understanding from a pictorial angle. The fraud triangle is a model for explaining the factors that causes someone to commit occupational fraud: pressure, opportunity, rationalization, and then at the center of it all is fraud itself. Now, opportunity: lack of weak internet controls, lack of securities on your computer, lack of secure data platform in that particular country, weak password, whatever you can think of, pretty much lack of control. Those of you that you want to create a password and then you use your date of birth, or you use your dog's name, your pet's name, you use your country, you can do better. You can literally do better than that. Because when fraudsters want to start guessing your password, the first thing they're going to guess is where you born, the country you're living in, the state you're living in, your kid's name, your pet's name. They can guess all of that. And then right now, systems are going to tell you you had special characters or numbers. Then you're going to see somebody, for example, right now I'm a Nigerian, and then my password can be Nigeria 1960. Nigeria gained our independence in 1960. Or I can decide to use my date of birth, Nigeria 19 something. It's easy to predict. And it's as simple as it sounds. The reality is that human beings were easy to predict. So opportunities, their motives, addictions, financial pressures. Half of the time, I think one thing my team left out here is also like motive pressure when it says addictions and financial pressure. Another thing is greed. Greed. You're going to see people try to rationalize the reason why the stealing. Because let's call it financial fraud, call it financial crime, call it payment fraud, whatever it is. At the end of the day, it's still stealing. We can paint it with fancy words as much as we want to, but it is what it is at the end of the day. So motives and pressures, addictions and financial pressures, and sometimes also gambling. I've seen people who have run themselves into debt and then now they're looking for easy way out because they've gambled all of their lives away. And if you don't take anything away from this webinar, I'll recommend a show for you guys to watch, which is it's on Netflix, Queen of the South. You should go watch Queen of the South. It will give you an understanding how, and then another show you should watch is Snowfall. Snowfall. You will see how somebody built an entire empire brick by brick on fraud, on drugs, on weapons, and everything you can think in the book, and how they ended up being an entire empire. I think you're going to learn more. You're going to learn a lot more from those two shows that I just mentioned. And then rationalization. Oh, I haven't received the raise. I'll pay back. Oh, it's just $5 that I'm taking away from different people. I think that was a couple of actually made the news in Nigeria, where some internship students, some internship kids went to a bank where they're working, and they decided to scrape every people who bank with that particular bank. They decided to scrape them like 5-10 cents each in hundreds of thousands of people. By the time you had it together, it became a lot of money. And normally when you receive an alert from your bank that you've been deducted of 5 cents, you don't want, who want to call their bank was of 5 cents? But somebody did. And then it led into an entire internal audit, only for them to realize that an entire fraud has taken place. They will have gone easily if somebody didn't call and raise an alarm over there. So pressure, opportunity, rationalization, and fraud. The pressure half of the time is people want to afford, they want to live the kind of lifestyle their bank account does not support. Opportunity. Oh, that is a way for me to actually do this thing without having to go to jail. And then rationalization. It's just 50 cents. There's nobody that's going to be hurt by this. It's not going to affect anybody. Who's going to cry over 50 cents? Then at the end of that triangle, that's where you have fraud at the center of it. Now, so you understand the fraud triangle in the real sense of things. All right. Now, how payment fraud affect businesses? This is where it becomes interesting. And now, mounting chargebacks. Chargeback simply means a transaction was conducted and somebody saying, you know what, I didn't receive the goods and services and I want my money back. You will have lost your goods, you will have lost your time, and somebody's going to tell you they still want their money back. You don't have any choice but to give it back. As a business owner, you want to satisfy your customer. So you're constantly thinking, okay, you know what, let me just give you back the money. Please don't be mad at me. I apologize for this misunderstanding. This is your money. And then half of the time, what usually happens is that you're gonna even go the extra mile by providing hard-on service for free for the person because you're trying to keep the customer. Guess what? At the end of the month, you still have to pay your employees. You still have to pay the electricity, the water, the taxes. You still have to pay the rent. How are you going to be able to do that if you're constantly having to pay back your customers for a transaction that never happened because fraud happened on your platform? High refund rates, which leads to the first one, mounting chargebacks and refund rates. And then it may affect the financial health of your company. We just talked about that. Cripple ecosystem and experience offered to customers. We just spoken about that. Because for me, as a customer, if I feel like, listen, you didn't even provide a service. You charge me for this. And I'm just going to tell a friend who's going to tell a friend that, man, don't patronize XYZ. I don't trust the person. As a matter of fact, when the chargeback happened on my credit card, I was really surprised because that credit card, it is one of the most secured credit card in not even United States, globally. So when it happened, I was like, what? And when I told them like 800 transactions just happened on my card, which I was not the one, they took responsibility instantly and apologized. I ended up a happy customer, but you can just imagine what that is going to do to them. If every Tom, Dick, and Harry keep calling and asking for $800, and I am not going to pay back $800 I never spent. So, and then it's the same thing, reputational damage. That's the last one I've just spoken about. It affects a lot of businesses. I've known small business owners who have decided to close shops just because of mounting chargeback, high refund rates, affecting the company's growth and expansions, and not to talk about balance sheet not looking good, and then reputational damages. So this is how it affects businesses. As business owners, as financial crime experts on the call, you understand the implications of all of this. But the guys out there who want to use the money to go to Maldives, who want to use the money to go to Dubai, buy expensive things, go to Rolex stores, go to Lamborghinis and Ferraris on your money, are they thinking that? In the real sense of things, I'm going to be as blunt with you as I can on this call. They don't really care. There was a documentary I watched recently on Hulu. Hulu is an online streaming platform like Netflix in the United States. And I was speaking about how a major general had to kill himself, kill his wife and his kids because they were scammed and crippled out of their entire life savings. It's a sad incident. At the end of the day, these financial crimes perpetrators, they don't look at, excuse me, how does this impact my victims? How many lives are being ruined? How many businesses are being destroyed? All they think about is, I'm big now. I can afford a private jet. I can go to some of these exotic islands and live lavishly. Unfortunately, as of today, those are the kind of people we glorify without understanding the source of wealth. Like I said, the payment fraud system is such a huge space that I can jump from topic to topic, but that's not why we're here. All right. Step you can take to protect your businesses against fraud payments. Because now, Wale, for the past 20, 30 minutes, you've been speaking about type of fraud. You've been speaking about how crazy fraud is, how it affects business owners, and how it impacts an organization health check and balance book. How can we mitigate this? So step by step as business owners that you can take. Monitor your account activities and keep an eye on transactions deviations. It is essentially important, please. Account deviation, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I said the devil is in the detail. If a transaction happens, as financial crime officers, we follow the numbers, we follow the pattern. It's right in front of you. Now, as business owners, you can help us by thinking the same way we're thinking constantly. If you see a transaction on your balance book that doesn't look normal, that doesn't look with it, you know it as business owners. If your average good is $10, $15, and then you check your balance book and then you see like, okay, that's a $15,000. Is it a situation of wrong zeros were being punched or was it intentionally being punched in? You need to be aware of that. Conduct KYC and proper user identity verifications. Now, what is the acronym KYC? KYC simply means know your customer. Know your customer. My credit card today, I wrote something at the back. I always say CID. So before you can process transaction for me using that particular credit card, if I go to a physical location, a physical store, you have to look at the back of my card where it says request for ID. So you should ask me for my ID. Now you check my ID, name of my ID, and the name of the credit card to ensure that it matches. What you've done right there, you've conducted KYC. You've known who I am. So that is essentially important. Know who your customers are. If a particular customer is deviating from what you've known them to be, I'm not saying that for every customer who was deviated from what you've known them to be, automatically means they're suspicious. So when next time your customer comes to your store to buy something, you start flashing touch lights in their face and be like, hey, is this really you? That's not what I'm talking about. But a good example I'm going to give to you is, let's say somebody who has been on our platform. Oh, when they started their account, when they started transacting, they transacted as taxi drivers, and they were processing $15, $20 here and there. And then all of a sudden, from processing $15, they started processing $15,000. For us, we noticed that deviation and be like, okay, what is really going on here? We're going to reach out to the customer. And in situations like that, we conduct a whole new underwriting for them. And I'd be like, hey, I have moved on from being a taxi driver to now selling cars. Congratulations. We're excited for you that your business has grown. So now, myself and the rest of my compliance and fraud officers are now aware that when they're looking at these transactions, they pay attention to details and realize that, oh, XYZ has migrated from being a taxi driver to now selling automobiles. So we've conducted a whole new underwriting. So it's the same thing. So please, as business owners, if we put your account in review, we freeze your account and we reach out to requesting for more documentation. It's not because my team and I enjoy making your life miserable. It's because we want to know more about your business. We want to understand the nature of your business. Has your business changed? Have you migrated? Have you grown? Which our biggest happiness is going to be for you to grow. So if you've grown, we conduct a whole new underwriting for you, which if you provide us the right documentation within a couple of hours, this is going to be conducted and you can move on with your life. And you don't have to hear from us again until probably something is going on wrong or we suspect something. But the truth is this, as business owners, I promise you, 99.5% of the time when we conduct verification on your account, you're not even aware. The rest of the 0.5 that you hear from us is when something does not align and we need more documentations and verifications from you. So as business owners, you need to understand your customers as well. Know who you're transacting with. When I was living in Estonia, a colleague of mine reached out to me and said, hey, Wale, there is this business owner. This is somebody who has never been to Lagos, Nigeria before. And she was telling me that this business owner that they found online on Facebook is based out of Lagos, Nigeria. You want them to ship them their goods in bulk. And then when he gets to Lagos and he's satisfied, he's going to send them a check and they can go and catch the check. She was so excited about the business opportunity and the thousands of euros they tend to make because they're small business owners. And she was telling me how this is going to be instrumental to her scaling the business, getting new vehicles, hiring more people. And she just went on and on and on and on. Unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news. And I told her, I said, well, do you know this person? She's like, no, the world is a global village now. But I said, hey, listen, I'm not saying there's anything wrong in meeting someone on social media, connecting and starting an entire business from there. But what I'm saying is that why is it that this person wanted the good to arrive first in Lagos? This person gave you certain stories that myself as a Nigerian who understand the Nigerian ecosystem, I know that that story didn't really align properly, but she doesn't understand it. And the only reason why she was telling me was because for some God no reason, she thought like by mentioning that person's name, I will know the person. I'm like, Nigeria is a country of about 200 million people. You don't expect me to know everybody, do you? And I had to explain to her. And it was that point where she had to take a step backward and be like, wait, you were right. These are the loopholes in these stories that just never really occurred to her because she was looking at the opportunity of we can make money together here. So if somebody miraculously reached out to you and tell you to ship your product, you're based out in Tanzania and they're expecting to ship 10,000 worth of dollars worth of goods to India. And they tell that when the goods get to India, that's when they're going to send you. You might want to be careful. Am I saying you should become overconscious as to engaging in business relationship? No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying be careful. Go into every business conversation with your eyes wide open. It's very important. Also, maintain awareness of non-latest fraud trend. It's important. Excuse me. It's important for you to be aware of the latest trend. One of the trend I mentioned to you is a dummy transaction alert. And I was telling the person, so when you receive these alerts, usually when your bank send you alerts that a transaction happened, they're gonna add it up to your current bank balance. And that's where you can see the total balance you have in your bank account. I said, did you receive? She was like, no, she didn't check. When she just saw that transaction has been completed, she was so excited to move on. And like, next time you want to pay attention to that. Encrypted transactions email containing confidential information. So you might want to check into that as well. Ensure that tokens and login credentials are regularly changed. That's another important one. Don't keep the same password for 5 years. Change your password periodically. Establish the policy regarding access to confidential information. Make sure that at your organization, access to certain information is being restricted and is based on it is on need to know basis. That is also very important. That is why that today, even within our own organization of Flutterwave, we have the fraud team, we have the transaction monitoring, we have the product compliance management team. At the center of all of that, we have an internal audit team. Everybody have different accesses and different controls. I believe you should do the same thing for your organization. Not everybody needs to know the password to the register. Not everybody needs to know the password to the backend, to the company's bank account. Make sure that it is based on individuals' roles and you need to know. Constantly run security check within antivirus software. That is another one. Don't just go on some of these free nets, download an antivirus, and you're like, oh, you're protected. No, you're not. If anything at all, you just open up yourself to more issues. So some of these free antivirus are not necessarily free. And just like a very good friend of mine always say, he always say when the product is free, your data is always the price. Remember that, boys. All right. We're almost at the end of the conversation, I promise you. Then some of the other stuff. Train our staff members. If you're thinking training your staff members is expensive, I promise you the fund you're going to lose is going to be higher than you having to train your staff members. So it is important. Train your members from time to time. Educate and re-educate them on the new payments fraud patterns out there and let them also understand the implication because they cannot have a disposition of it's not my business. I don't care if you lose money. You should care because if I lose money and I keep bleeding money, I'm not going to pay your salary and you're going to be out of a job before you know it. Remain alert for bogus email, especially phishing and emails and impersonation emails. You're going to receive a lot of this. And I believe out of the 130 people on this call today, at least 100 of us will have received one of those emails at one stage or another in our career, in our life. Set up a dual approval processes, e.g. make and checker. That is very important. Always put a make and checker in place. That's the reason why even as an organization, we have an internal audit team as well, who audits everything that has been done in the organization at the end of the year. And even with that, we still engage with external auditors who are still going to come to audit what our internal auditors have done. So, and then practice strong cybersecurity, use of encrypted wireless network, encourage employees to communicate via company emails, install antivirus softwares, and maintain rigorous firewall protections for your company. That is very, very important. That's important. And also, it goes without mention, when you're traveling and you're at the airport and you want to work and all of that, be careful of some of this side that you open, because some half of the time you're connecting to the internet, to the Wi-Fi at the airport. The authenticity and the security level of those Wi-Fi, that is not something I can guarantee you. And then you're at the airport where there's thousands of other people who can easily redivert. And before you know it, your account that is looking all smiley can start looking all gloomy. All right, safeguarding card identity. Carry, don't provide, don't leave, report, review, request, don't lend, don't write down. Always carry a few cards as necessary. For some God no reason, some people feel like carrying 10, 15 credit, 20 cards makes them look big or superior. I don't know. I don't see a reason why to carry thousands of cards when you can easily carry one or two. Don't provide card information to an unauthorized person. Don't do that. I believe these points are as clear as anything could be. Do not leave card unattended with merchants. Just because you have a merchant and you're like, oh man, just leave the card. Let me go do something on the back end. I'll be back. Don't do that. Please don't. Immediately report the loss or theft of any card to the card issuer. It is important. Even when you think like you don't have enough money on the card and you're boarded, it's still very important for you to still report that the card has been stolen or you've lost the card, because you just never know where that card and what that card might be used for somewhere down the line. And if it's come back to bite you, you can't give the excuse of, oh, I just thought it was $50 on the card, that's why I never bothered myself. The next question that you're going to be asked is, did you actually report it? And if the answer is no, then instead for you to be regarded as a victim, they're going to start looking at you as a suspect. So never reveal account card number or other card information to individual posting to be representative of agents of banks. Nobody from Fluttery is going to call you today and start asking you like, hey, can you provide me with your 16 numbers on your card? Please. Nobody's going to do that. So pay attention. It's essentially important. Request. If aware of any suspicious activities, immediately request a fraud alert to be placed on account to fraudsters attempt charge. I've seen situations where, let me give you a very good instances where someone, what they did at first was they charged a couple of cents, like 10 cents on a particular credit card. And then when that cent went through, if not for the fact that my friend already called the credit card company and said, hey, there's a 10-cent charge on my card. I don't know what that is for. And they were like, oh, okay, we're going to place the card on freeze. And when they play the card on freeze, not too long after, somebody tried to charge the card of $6,000. So if you didn't report it, that $6,000 you will have lost. And they kept trying and kept trying and kept trying over time. And the credit card had to cancel the card and they sent them a new one. So it's important. Don't lend. Do not lend card to another person. I don't see a reason why anybody should do that. We live in the 21st century where everybody should have access to their own card. So do not write down card or account details where others might see them. It's very important because you just never know what might be done with those information. So guys, these are some of the tips on safeguarding card identity. Some red flags: unusual large purchase. Pay attention to that. If you know that, you know how much you spend, you know where you spend it. For some reason, I think some people just feel like it's cool. It makes them look cool. Whatever the definition of cool is, I don't really know. I believe cool is relative. They believe it makes them look cool by not checking their bank account or checking their wallet balance. They just want to be like, you know what, I'm too big to check my bank balance. I don't know where that mentality comes from. Because by you not checking your bank balance or your wallet balance, this is how some of these transactions happen, and you're not going to be aware. Multiple transactions within a short space of time. You need to be aware of that as well. Inconsistency in data supply and likely false information, typos, spellings, and all of that. Half of the time when people steal credit card or they steal a debit card, they don't really have access to all of the information. Using US as an example, you have to enter the zip code of the credit card or of the debit card you're trying to use. So most time they don't really know the zip code, so they're just gonna start second guessing. Like, okay, I found this card on Fisher Road. Fisher Road, the zip code is 4432. Okay, let me put in 4432. However, the person's zip code might be different. So instances like that as well is very, very important. And then problem supplying personal details, just like as an example I gave when I said ask for CID, and then the person asked for an ID and I cannot provide it. In situations like that, they shouldn't conduct the transaction from, regardless of the sad stories that I want to be like, well, I'm so sorry, my house is 50 minutes away, I left everything, I was in a rush. How can I be in a rush and I pick the credit card and I forget my ID? Attempt to rush or pressure or distract. A very good instance is, which usually happen. I think there's a particular YouTube video where you can actually type in and say, I think the video is like a baby crying, using baby tears for scam or something. I can't really remember the right word, but by the time you play around, so let me just tell the story the way it is. So what happened is this woman called a customer representative, which it was actually a real life scenario. This one was telling this person, like, I can hack into your bank account in 10 minutes. And the guy was like, no way. I think it's part of the conference that always happens in Vegas every year. It's one of it's like the biggest collections of hackers in the world. They always meet in Vegas every year. So this one called the customer support of the bank. And she was playing the sound of a dog barking. She was playing the sound of a baby crying. And the representative was like, how can I help you today? And she was like, I'm so sorry that I'm calling you, ma. And then the baby was crying so loud, the dog, and she was like, I'm so sorry about the noise and the chaos. My husband has not been around, he's on a business trip. We have a bank account with you guys, and I'm just trying to get into the account, and I've been having issues. Automatically, the bank representative was thinking like, oh, I need to empathize, I need to help. And she jumped straight into action, because she was hearing the baby, and the was like, stop crying. And then she was like, I'm so sorry that you have all of this going on. How can I help? Long story short, the lady provided the bank details and everything, and she successfully logged into the guy's account. So don't let anybody rush you and pressure you and distract you into anything. Take your time. As business owners and as individuals, that is very important. Customer makes several failed attempts to pay using different card. It's as simple as it is. What you read on the screen, that is what it is. When somebody's trying to pay the same transaction with multiple different cards, obviously, sometimes you might want to use one card and you don't have money and you bring out another card. That's not bad. But when you start using about 10 cards to try and process a $50 transactions, you might want to watch it. Billing and shipping addresses does not match. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an indication of anything wrong, because I've been here in Houston, Texas, and I've bought something for a friend of mine in West Virginia. So billing and shipping addresses not matching doesn't necessarily mean anything, so long as the person can provide the detail, they can provide the information, and it makes sense. Geolocation data points to a risk area. You might want to pay attention to that. There are certain jurisdictions, certain countries that are considered as high risk, so you might want to pay attention to those as well. So now, in conclusion, payment fraud can hurt both your businesses and customers. However, by protecting your business or store against fraud, you can improve your reputations and your bottom line. Now, my conclusion to you guys is that for us at Flutterwave, for you as business owners, and for you as individuals on the call, like I mentioned, it is called organized crime for a reason. Collectively, we can do so much good together by reducing fraud within our ecosystem, if only we're willing to cooperate and build a strong network of fraudsters together. Together, we can get a lot done. And that is what we're asking for. That when you see something, say something and act on it. Ladies and gentlemen, and what are some of the tools that we use today at Flutterwave to help? Today we use Flutter, which is an online fraud tools that we partner with. LexisNexis, one of the biggest in the industry. eToker is right there. Verify is right there. CyberSource, Unit 21. These are some of the tools that we use on our backend in order to protect some of the fraud mitigation processes on our side. So our job is to ensure that you're able to sleep better at night. Our job is to make a difference within the ecosystem and leave our footprint in the sand of time. And by doing that, is part of a partnership. And these are just some of the partnerships that we have ongoing right now that we make use of the tools. And then in-house, we have different people who have come from different backgrounds and with a whole wide range of experiences that we're actually leveraging on. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for listening to my presentation on fraud.
Thank you so much, Wale. Thank you. It was really insightful. I hope everyone was able to learn a thing or two. If you have questions, you can drop that in the Q&A section. We'll be getting to that shortly. And if you joined the webinar late, no need to fret, because the webinar is being recorded. So we would share the recording via email this week to you, or you can also check our YouTube channel by Friday. It will be live there. So now we're going into Jola's section. She's going to be sharing what Flutterwave has for business owners at the moment. Hi, Jola, are you there?
Hello, Sean. Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen shortly. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jola Day. Like Sean said, I'm going to be talking to you about the Flutterwave store and how you can use it to grow your business. So first things first, the Flutterwave store is honestly the simplest way for you to get your merchandise online. It's our e-commerce solution that we use for merchants who want to get their business up and running in a matter of minutes. You don't need any technical skills. You don't need to know how to code. We simply make it very plug and play for you. The Flutterwave store was built in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So what we found was that a lot of our merchants who hitherto had been processing a lot of transactions could no longer do that because they couldn't go to their stores, their physical locations, because of the restricted movement, and their customers couldn't come to them either. So we then created the Flutterwave store to make it such that they could start to sell online as easily as possible. So essentially, at the time, we did keep the lights on for those businesses. There's several benefits of creating the Flutterwave store. Like I said before, you don't need a website. You don't need to pay any web hosting fees. You don't need the help of a developer. You simply can do this on your own. In terms of generating invoices, keeping track of your payments, you can do all of this on your dashboard. So it's super simple. Your customers as well will find that they prefer this experience because they don't need to hear back from you about whether a product is available or how much the product costs. They simply access the link that you share, go on there, buy what they want to buy, check out, and that's it. In addition, we have a feature that lets you generate a payment link. This payment link can be shared with your customers as well. The good thing is that you're not restricted to people in your environment alone. We also enable local and international transactions. So, the features that I would like to highlight as well. So, in terms of what you can upload, there's no limit, right? You can upload as many products as possible. And where some of those products have maybe size variations, if it comes in size 38, 40, 42, etc., you're able to, list all of that. you are also able to list the quantities for each of those variations. So you don't have to just put the total amount for everything. You can break it down, per variation. And, Wale has run us through what fraud is really all about and how we can, prevent such scenarios from happening to us as business owners. Just to let you know that the Flutterwave store has an inbuilt fraud management solution. So, you can go to bed easy. People who shop on your Flutterwave store, are rest assured that there's no funny business. We are PCI DSS compliant, meaning that all credit and debit cards used in this environment are, 100% secure. In terms of payment options, we do offer you the flexibility, whether you want to use USSD, payment links, barter, bank transfer. We make all those options available, so your customer is really spoiled for choice when it comes to selecting that. Like I mentioned before, we have local and international card acceptance set up on the Flutterwave stores, so you no longer need to limit yourself to just the people around you in terms of buying and selling. For the channels on which you can use the Flutterwave store, we have our web platform where you can, sign in and put in your details, and you're basically able to access your dashboard, your store, all of that. You can also do this on the mobile app as well, which enables you see what's happening with your business on the go. It's really the easiest way to keep an eye. In terms of setting discounts, you're able to set discounts that are unique to you. So where you want to run a promotion or any of that, we don't dictate the discount levels. You have the flexibility to choose when and how deep you want to go discount wise. So everyone can use Flutterwave store. Everyone who has a legitimate business, of course, you simply need to sign up. You provide the KYC information, which is know your customer, and you're good to go. I can assure you that you will open the store successfully in just under 10 minutes. So I'll show you a quick video on how it works. I hope this sound is fine.
It's the Junior Lady Shopping Festival.
What does the path to success in your online business look like? What are the ingredients needed to succeed in selling online? Here's the obvious hint. You need the Flutterwave store. Here are the ingredients you need to succeed. Great product images, responsive layout, default payments integration, instant presentations, fast checkout, and even delivery. If you have no coding skills or knowledge, you're just as welcome, because the Flutterwave store doesn't require any. You can create a store for your business for free and start selling in 5 minutes or less. Step 1. Visit www.flutterwave.com/store and click on Set up your store for free. Step 2. Complete the sign-up form and click Get Started. Step 3. Check your email inbox for verification mail and click on the link. Select how you want to accept payment. Click on Store in the side menu of your admin panel, fill in the details, and take it online. Step 5. Add products and start selling. Create your own online store today and receive payments from around the world. The Flutterwave store. Just sign up, list, and sell. It's that easy. Coding skills or knowledge, you're just...
Okay, so here I have, outlined the flow of a merchant all the way to when the customer shops on their Flutterwave store to when they're paid. So this is just an example. It's called JK Fashion. So the first thing JK Fashion will do after setting up the Flutterwave store is to take note of the link for their Flutterwave store and then put it on all their social channels where they would typically do business, so that people can access those links easily. So the customer sees the link, goes to the page, makes their selection from JK Fashion's Flutterwave store. Like I said, the person doesn't have to pick up the phone to speak with JK Fashion, because they can there and then select the item, check out. At the point at which they're checking out, they're required to put their own information as the customer. So that's their name, their delivery information, all of that. And then they now move to a page where they see the options to pay. And then they make their selection, whether they want USSD, bank transfer, etc. And then they complete the payment. So immediately they complete the payment, JK Fashion will receive that payment in their wallet, and then, be able to do a deep dive of what exactly that order is. So they can then start to, put these items together and make it ready for their own dispatch company of choice to pick up. The merchant JK Fashion can also go to the dashboard to look at what the sales trends have been, what day people shop the most from him or her, who are the most frequent customers. All that information is available on the dashboard. And so for the purpose of the target audience that I'm speaking with today in Nigeria, I've highlighted what the processing fee is for Nigeria. It is 1.4% of the transaction amount for local transactions. For international transactions, it's 3.8 for the processing fee, but you can always go to our website. You would see a page that talks about pricing. You'll see the different global pricing. So depending on what country you might be in at the moment or be interested in. And so some of the FAQs are, when do I receive my money? Well, you get your money in your wallet immediately. That happens in real time. In terms of settlement into your account, which is your bank account of your choosing, you will get that the following day. And for international payments, that would vary depending on where you are located. In terms of the transaction limits, it would depend on the type of business that you're doing, and a lot more of that. So in terms of who bears the transaction charge, this is something that we've created flexibility for. So you can make it such that you bear the transaction charge as the merchant, or your customer does. So it's really up to you. We give the option to decide. We have a couple of merchant testimonials. There have been people who have been using the Flutterwave store for years now and have good stories to tell. Just in the interest of time, I will show you one of such videos.
We all know the crazy chaos caused by trying to use more than one app for productivity. There has to be a better way to work. We all know the crazy chaos. That's why we created ClickUp. ClickUp is an entire productivity platform that keeps all of your work organized in one beautifully intuitive place. Now you can.
So I'm going to play that directly from here, actually.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
Oh, okay. I'm not sure why that's happening. We'll just keep that. We do have a video. I can just drop the link as we go along so you can watch the merchant testimonial. And so we do have a couple of features that we're excited about. So the product team has been working hard on this to make it available to merchants pretty soon. So we'll have integrated trackable last mile delivery such that merchants can, just pack the goods and, Flutterwave will ship it to the customer's location. We have something called digital ad management where, Flutterwave will make it possible for merchants to, set up ads on different social channels. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Google, they will be able to do all of that from the dashboard and be able to, track the campaigns that they've done, these adverts that they've done. For ratings and reviews, we will have that as well, where shoppers can leave ratings and reviews. And so, we know how word of mouth gets to encourage more people to shop on your store when they see that a lot of people have dropped positive reviews and a high number of ratings. So on this journey where you open up a Flutterwave store and you're looking to grow your business, we have resources such as this one that we're on now, which is held on a bi-weekly basis, where the team creates it gets a customized theme per session where they talk to you about several pain points or for businesses, or what you can be doing to improve the way that your businesses are run. So all in all, the Flutterwave store definitely is the way to go. Like I said before, it's super efficient in that your business can run on its own. Your customers don't need to know how much something is first, where you're telling them to DM for price, or they have to ask for your bank details. They simply see the link, go on the link, and they shop right away. That's everything from me today. Please drop your questions in the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jola. So now we're going into the Q&A section. So if you have questions, feel free to drop that, because I'll be going through that now. Okay, Jola, this is for you. Let's go through with this one. Can I add a course to the Flutterwave store?
A course? Is that what you said?
Yeah, a course, yeah. Maybe like
okay.
a...
Yes, so you can. We do have opportunities for you to do that. However, we mostly have physical goods listed on the Flutterwave store. We can encourage you to, explore our payment links option. But yes, you can do that with the Flutterwave store. You just have to download it and make it available to your buyer after the payment goes through.
All right, thank you. Adewale, this is for you. It says, do you regard user error scams as payment fraud? For instance, when someone overhears someone else's number at a mobile money agent and sends a request to their phone number, technically the user is the one who confirmed the request because they didn't read the message. What is the responsibility of companies to prevent this type of user negligence? Does it count against us as being lax on fraud?
That's actually a very good question. The truth is that user error is part of the world we live in. There is no amount of how we can predict things like this. But on our side, part of the things that we're doing is users education, continuous educations and re-educations, which obviously is one of the reasons for this webinar. And also part of the things that my team and I were putting in place is continuous sending out real-time emails to let people know, like, hey, listen, these are some of the patterns, these are some of the things you need to be aware of. At the end of the day, we can only try. And that is why we need your help as well. We can mitigate fraud as much as we can, but wiping out fraud 100%, I'll be lying to you on this call if I say that's going to happen. But we can try as much as possible with your help. But user's error is part of the things that we have to go through. But I believe that continuous re-education is going to put out a kind of sanitization out there that makes everybody becomes aware, and we can reduce such issues going forward.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, of what importance is data analytics in fighting fraud? What sort of data do you think will be useful to fight CMP fraud, for an instant?
Data is everything. I mean, when we're talking about certain trends and certain patterns in the course of the webinar, it's all come down to data. So there is no way that you can run a successful financial crime program, even either as a fraudster or as a fraud fighter, without data. So data is essentially important. I would say data in the sense of, like, pay attention to the pattern, pay attention to the trend, pay attention to the geographical locations, pay attention to misinformation that have been provided. All of that is essentially important. Without data, you have nothing. So data is the bedrock, is your first line of defense.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll be taking just 2 more questions because of time. We're running over. So if you have any other questions, you can send that to hi@flutterwavego.com. But the next question is, how do we verify geological location data in order to ensure it is coming from an authentic source?
So that is not really your own headache. That is more of our own headache on the back end. And that is why we're there. And it's also the reason why we partner with so many other external vendors in order to be able to utilize some of their tools. Now, from your side, what can you do? If transaction is happening and let's say somebody reached out to you from India and you're based out in Lagos, Nigeria, and the person, for some reason, I don't know, I'm using India. And somebody asks you to ship your product to India, don't immediately just jump at the idea of, oh, I'm about to make $5 million from these transactions. It looks good, obviously, but there are certain questions that you need to ask. How is payment going to be made? How am I going to receive my fund? Am I going to get paid ahead of time? Like, ask all of these questions, ask all of these clarifying questions first, and not just ship the product and then start asking questions later. And now you start reaching out to some of us that Flutterwave and say, but you guys allow the transactions to happen. We're only a processor. You use that medium. Now, with that being said, on the back end, what are we doing? If transaction is happening from a particular location that has been known to be historically high risk, either for fraud or whatever, or for transaction and money laundering, it is a job to alert you and say, are you authenticating these transactions? And even with that being said, we can ask all of these questions. Are you authenticating the transactions? Are you allowing the transactions to happen? And you say yes to that. That is all we can do. It still comes down to you as a person. And that is why on these conversations today, I have emphasized and re-emphasized the need for you to ask clarifying questions before you process transaction. Don't just look at the reward, also ask clarifying questions before you jump into the profits side of it.
Thank you. So the next question is Flutterwave routing transactions through her anti-fraud system before approval or after approval? That's the first one. Then without putting a certain figure to it, considering a 3-year timeline, what is the highest type of payment fraud across your infrastructure regionally and globally? I don't think we can.
So the first one, is there a routing transaction through? Yeah, absolutely. Pre-transactions and post-transactions. Pre-transactions, before it happens, we authenticate the card, we authenticate the geolocation, we know the individual who's trying to make these transactions happen. That is a job, like I said, it is still your job to either approve or decline a transaction. So when you approve a transaction, we just feel like there's an exchange of goods and service. And so that is, and then post-transactions, when we start noticing certain trends and patterns and it doesn't align, even for you as a customer, if you notice that the transaction velocity does not align with what we've not used to process historically, then it is our job to ask clarifying questions. So that is why I mentioned the course of my presentation that we might have placed the accounting review at one stage or another to request for more information. So that is why we do. That is why we do that. When we place the accounting review, it's not because we want to try and make your life miserable. It's because we're trying to protect you. And then what is the second one is without putting a number to it, with certain figure to considering the 3-year timeline, what is the highest type of payment fraud across your infrastructure today? I'm not going to say our infrastructure. I'm just going to say globally, because I joined Flutterwave about 4 months ago. And before I joined Flutterwave, I've had a chance of working in Europe and working in North America as well. The truth is that the landscape of fraud is everly changing. Like I mentioned earlier, I spoke about PPP loan here in the United States. That is not something that exists pre-COVID about 2 years ago. And as of today, PPP is one of the biggest platforms where fraud transactions is taking place. And I can promise you the next 1 year as well, it's going to change. So as human evolution keep happening, new transaction patterns keep emerging, so also is going to be new fraud points. So that question is very difficult to pinpoint to a particular aspect, because fraud is not just a Flutterwave issue, a Nigerian issue, or an African issue. It's a global pandemic that we all have to fight together.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's it from my side, OG.
All right, so I think we're done now. Okay, let me ask this one. This is the last one. Does Flutterwave have a plan to implement artificial intelligence system to advise businesses on their customer behaviors? I'm interested in knowing your plans to use the understudy of patterns to save businesses. For example, duplicate transactions, attempts to use different cards by different owners for the same transaction, attempts by the same customer to pay several amounts in short time frames, and a lot more.
Yeah, that's actually a very great question. Thanks to the person who asked that. Some of the things you've listed is some of the like we're currently implementing. And thanks to, like I said, like my fraud and transaction monitoring team, Oluwato Fomin and Wanu, like these are guys that are doing a fantastic job in order to look for new ways, like find modern ways to attack modern situations. So that is very important. Yes and yes, we're currently building. There are certain things that we're currently building out in partnership with our customer experience team. Where we're going to find a way to communicate with more of our customers in real time and advise you accordingly. That is something we're currently working on. And then likewise, as far as like transaction patterns and velocities and using data and our algorithm to predict certain transaction, those are some of the things that we already have in place today. The fact that you as our customer does not receive that information doesn't mean that it's not happening on the back end. I promise you, if my team today decides to be like, we want to take a 24 hours break, we don't want to do anything, you're going to feel the effect. I promise you that. So the reason why you don't feel much of that effect today is because these people are working around the clock. But like I said, there is no perfect compliance program or fraud management team anywhere. It is always about improving the processes. And that is part of our Q4 goal as we close the year out.
Okay. Thank you so much, Wale. Thank you. So we've come to the end of our webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us today on the understanding fraud in the payment space. Thank you for joining us. This webinar again is being recorded. So we'll be sending out emails during the course of the week. So you get that in your inbox. And if you don't get that, you can always check our YouTube channel. It's called Flutterwave. And then you can check our webinar playlist where you see all our webinars, our previous webinars, and also this one too. So if you have any questions or if you have anything you want to ask, you can send us an email at hi@flutterwavego.com, or you can also message us on our handles at the Flutterwave on Instagram and on Twitter too. And on Twitter, if you have support issues, you can message at FLW support and we'll take care of that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today.